It's Friday.
The land of EWTN all across the Lone Star State.
It's GRN Alive.
Bringing you faith, fun, and facts.
Live from the studios of the Guadalupe Radio Network.
Join us on the show. Call
877-757-9424.
877-757-9424.
Good morning and welcome to GRN Alive Friday edition. It is a beautiful day where I am. I hope it is where you are as well. June 5th, 2020, Friday, 9th week in Ordinary Time, no longer in Easter season. And today is the feast day of St. Boniface, Bishop and Martyr. He is the famous saint who chopped down Thor's sacred tree. We've heard that. I think there's some relationship between St. Boniface and also the Christmas tree as well. So anyways, Dr. Malloy walks in and I said, "You're going to talk about St. Boniface today, right?" And so anyways, do you know much about him? Or that's kind of his legend?
That's the best aspect of the thing is his mission to the Germanic people, right? Pope Gregory III. So he's up there, and the Germans worshipped trees.
Yeah.
Right? And so he famously chops one down, which brings to mind, Benedict chasing the pagans out of that high place.
Yeah.
Outside of Rome. And that's what the saints do. Goes back to Elijah challenging the prophets of Baal.
Yeah, I thought about that.
We can't tolerate I should say we can tolerate, right, a false religion, of course. But there comes a time when we do have to topple the idols.
Yeah.
And these saints discern prudently in their situation, this is the time to topple the idols. And so praise God for St. Boniface and the courage he had discerning that right moment at that right time.
Yeah.
It's a very different world, this notion of the kind of private property we have these days is a little, it's so defined. Like, this is my house, etc. Back then, it would have been a little bit more open. So he chops down the tree. That's we'll see what happens with your idols.
Yeah,
interesting. St. Patrick, same thing. I'm going to light the fire before the king.
Yeah, we got to know our saints. These stories are awesome. So, all right, Dr. Malloy from University of Dallas. Cecil Anderson is here as well. Hi, Cecil. Good morning.
Good morning.
And Diane Xavier is running our board. We have our intern, Sam Cavanna, is joining us today. Sam comes from a line of interns. Two of his brothers have interned here before, so we're happy to have him here as well. Wanted to let you know that this coming Tuesday, June 9th, we will begin the celebrating 20 years of Catholic Radio on the Guadalupe Radio Network Summer Shirathon. Now, that's kind of a long name, okay? But, the key is that it's the
20th.
It's the same theme as the spring because this is our 20th anniversary. We go back to the year 2000 when the first station went on in Midland. And so I don't have to tell you, these are challenging times, and we really need your support. And I have been so happy and so thankful for the folks who have supported us, who say, I know you need the support now as much as ever. And so please, next week, when you hear us on the radio, giving out the phone number, call up and support the station.
If you've got some extra from that stimulus package.
Yeah, many of us did. So just send a little bit to Guadalupe Radio Network's way. So anyways, Tuesday morning, the 9th, 7 o'clock Central, 8 o'clock Eastern Time, the Summer Shirathon begins, and it'll go through Friday the 12th. And so anyways, I don't have to tell you also, these are tough times. I was just thinking about this, Dr. Malloy. From the last time we were on the air, last Friday, to today, these 7 days, speaking for myself, have been the most chaotic, unsettling, violent, crazy, loony 7 days that I've ever experienced in my life. Not personally in my life,
but culturally?
Culturally, yeah. And I spoke to somebody the other day that's 90 years old, and the people are saying the same thing. Even people who went through, World War II or
the 60s?
And the 60s. And I know, but people are saying, this is crazy. And so, and I thought
it's
about
very
it.
odd. Let's put it that way.
Put it this way. Friday, March 6th, less than 3 months ago, we were here, and that was the day we gave away the car. We did the car raffle, okay? There was a little bit of something in the air that morning that, we're hearing about this virus, and people are kind of starting to get concerned. I did the show. I left. We did the drawing. And I went to an event in a nearby city here in North Texas with about 2,500 people.
I remember that.
Okay,
Yeah.
that was March 6th, less than 3 months ago. Since then, I mean, well, how else can you describe it? The world has absolutely turned upside down. I mean, we had the COVID virus, lockdowns, churches closed, face masks, social distancing, 40 million people lost their job, the killing of George Floyd, protests, riots, destruction of property, mayhem, chaos.
Oil for giveaway.
Oil for give. I mean, and that's only a partial list, but I mean, it's just mind-boggling, the changes that have gone on. People are afraid. People are in chaos. I saw a story just the other day, 2 million first-time gun buyers now in the United States. 2 million people that have never owned a gun have gone.
Background checks are up 40%.
Yeah, 40%. And that means that people are scared. And I just wanted to, I normally don't do a formal prayer at the beginning of it, but I know we're all familiar with the Divine Mercy Chaplet. Okay,
Yeah.
we pray it as a company, as a GRN, every single day at 3:00. We all gather together, even though we have offices across the country, and we pray. And there's a prayer at the end that starts off with Eternal God, in whom mercy is endless and the treasury of compassion inexhaustible. I think most people are familiar with that. Did you know there's a longer version of that? And I just want to pray it because as I say this, I think this is exactly what we need to hear during these times, because people are so scared, myself included. I mean, we shouldn't be afraid, but it goes like this. O great merciful God, infinite goodness, today all mankind calls out from the abyss of its misery to your mercy, to your compassion, O God. And it is with its mighty voice of misery that it cries out, gracious God, do not reject the prayer of this earth's exiles. O Lord, goodness beyond our understanding, who are acquainted with our misery through and through, and know that by our own power we cannot ascend to you. We implore you, anticipate us with your grace, and keep on increasing your mercy in us, that we may faithfully do your holy will all through our life and at death's hour. Let the omnipotence of your mercy shield us from the darts of our salvation's enemies, that we may with confidence, as your children, await your Son's final coming, the day known to you alone. And we expect to obtain everything promised us by Jesus in spite of all our wretchedness. For Jesus is our hope. Through his merciful heart, as through an open gate, we pass through to heaven. Amen.
Amen.
In the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit, amen. That's actually from St. Faustina's diary.
That's beautiful.
Very beautiful.
I guess paragraph 1570. But I saw that, and it's long, and we don't pray that one at the end of the Divine Mercy. But anyways, I've had a lot of conversations this week. I've talked to a lot of people, and during this hour, we're just going to talk about some of the things in the news. A lot of it kind of related to religious liberty. And things going on in our culture, the riots, the racial justice. I will say that, one of the things that's really concerned me about this is just the way that personal interaction has changed. I went to go buy a pizza 2 nights ago, and a place close to my house, and there's this big plastic screen separating me from the lady doing the register. And I actually took a picture of it because I was like, seriously? I mean, is this really necessary? I mean, do we have to have like a physical block between us? We're afraid to sit by each other now. We're afraid to shake hands. I don't know if I'm supposed to shake hands with people now. A lot of people are wearing the face masks. Am I supposed to shake, hug, fist bump, elbow bump? I mean, it's like, do people think I'm sick? Am I supposed to think they're sick? And I personally, and this is just my opinion, I've been a little suspicious since the beginning about the whole social distancing, the lockdowns. I mean, everything. Grandmas, don't hug your grandkids. Stay away from each other. Don't shake hands. And I came across an article by the vice president of the American Society for the Defense of Tradition, Family, and Property. His name is John Horvat. And it's called "The Pandemic Has Made America a Leprosarium of Non-Lepers." I think you've read this.
I have not read that one, no, but
I
I like reading Horvat stuff.
Yeah, so he basically described what I have been thinking, but I don't have the brightness and to describe it. He's making an analogy that basically our culture has become a leprosarium, where we're all in a leper colony and everybody is suspected of having leprosy, and we're all supposed to stay away from each other. And I just think in my gut of gut, there's something fundamentally wrong with this approach, that everybody is suspicious of everybody else. And I go in and I just don't get it. Okay. So, anyways, he's going to join us and talk about this. And also, he's an expert on socialism. Maybe he can talk about some of the underlying motives behind some of the things that are going on in our culture right now. It's complex. There seems to be some pernicious, insidious forces that are lining up, forces of goodness. I don't know.
You know, Ed Fazer has a blog. I don't know if you ever read it. I really recommend it. And he says, look, at the beginning of this, justifiable reaction.
Yeah.
We're past that now.
Yeah.
We didn't know what was going to happen. The numbers are pretty low. This is not anywhere near the Spanish flu.
Yeah.
And I'm not equating it with a flu. I know it's something of a different beast, but we're talking about numbers here.
Yeah.
50 million people dying in a year and a half. Spanish flu. Well, this is not shaken out that way.
Yeah.
Were the hospitals overrun? I'd like to know which ones.
Yeah.
We could probably put them on our two hands in the U.S.
Yeah, there were people that actually
Italy,
went and did. They brought a video, and the hospitals would say, "Well, don't look at the empty parking lots. That doesn't tell the story."
Right,
I mean,
right.
like, well, did anybody walk there or what?
A friend of mine in Minnesota said there's a hospital 7 floors. They closed 6 floors empty.
Yeah.
The 7th floor is for COVID, and almost no one was there.
Yeah.
About a third.
Yeah, yeah. And that's not to deny, we all know COVID exists.
Yes.
We all know that people have died
absolutely.
of COVID. I guess the issue is, was the cure worse than the disease?
Yeah.
And that's what I think we can talk to John Horvat about. And there's a whole lot else going on. And, kind of pick some stories. Of course, a week like this, we could talk for 10 hours about this. And I also want to invite you, dear listener, to call in and let us know what you're thinking. John's going to come on at the bottom of the hour. But we've got about 20 minutes now to talk. We've got some articles and stories that, Diane, by the way, is posting these on Facebook and YouTube and Twitter and on our YouTube channel, and some images there as well. If you want to visit us there, the tagline is GRN Online. But there's some handpicked articles that we've kind of picked, and Sissel, you can kind of introduce some of these.
Sure.
And if anybody wants to call in, 877-757-9424. Because I'll tell you what, as we go into our week next week with the Share-a-thon, I have talked to people. I interviewed somebody the other day, and she said, Catholic radio gives me a community when I feel isolated. When I feel like the world has gone crazy, I feel like I can turn on the radio and I can talk to people that are like-minded. And I know that there is order in the world. I can hear about God. I can hear about goodness and purity, and we need that so badly these days. And so, anyways, that's another little promo for the Share-a-thon. But anyways,
Very good.
so what are the stories, Sissel?
Oh, so remember the days when we couldn't find any good stories? That was not the case this week.
That's for sure.
Right. So first up, you might have heard that President Donald Trump and First Lady Melania Trump visited the John Paul II National Shrine in Washington, D.C., which is an awesome place, by the way. I've been. And this is before he signed an executive order to expand the U.S. support for international religious freedom efforts. So they were able to visit there, and he left a wreath to commemorate the saint's 100th birthday, which was a few weeks ago. And yeah, it had a lot to do with, we talked about religious persecution, and he just signed to, the foreign policy priority of the United States. He calls it a moral and national security imperative, the Order for Religious Freedom. And it calls for a budget of at least $50 million for programs to help quell the religious violence and persecution abroad and to protect religious minorities. And Trump says that it's to stop the crimes against people of faith, release prisoners of conscience, repeal laws restricting freedom of religion and belief, protect the vulnerable, the defenseless, and the oppressed. Which is a very interesting comment considering all the other stories I feel like we have for today.
Yeah, right. And I was kind of upset because when he made that visit, everybody was talking about the Archbishop of D.C.'s reaction to it and his response, and then everybody attacking the Archbishop and I got to think, well, why was he there? What was the point of his being there? And so I think it ties in very nicely. In fact, there's a guy named Robert Nicholson, president of the Philos Project, which aims to foster and advocate for religious engagement in the Middle East. And he said, quote, "We need more religion in the world, not less. At a time when chaos reigns and mankind lies entangled in chains of his own making, the need for faith in transcendent truth becomes even clearer." And so I thought that actually the timing of the visit, and I guess this was planned ahead of time. It wasn't something like, Trump, just arranged 2 days ago. So,
Right.
But anyways, Melania's
Yeah,
Catholic.
people were upset that there are protesters there. I'm not sure what form the protest was taking at that place, but at any rate, in order to clear the space for the visit, they had to push people out and whatnot. There was allegedly there were some. Was
Tear
it
gas.
tear gas. I don't
rubber?
know. I think that was
rubber
denied.
bullets.
Yeah.
Was that
Something.
denied?
Well, I
so
know the night before it was like absolute chaos.
So maybe
all
they
around.
conflated
And then the
those.
next morning, the president of the United States is walking, gingerly through the area, and you're like, wow, they cleaned that up pretty quickly.
Right.
But I don't know. I don't know exactly what they did to clear it, but they certainly cleared it. And
Can I say something on religious freedom here?
Oh, certainly.
There's two aspects. Like in a way, so the religious freedom. I'm glad for this because we as a Catholic Church are not being given like even a basic decency with some of these other stories, right?
Yeah,
The lawsuits going.
Yeah.
We can get back to that. The other side of it is the religious duty.
Mm-hmm.
We all have a religious duty, each of us, to seek the truth.
Yeah.
And the Catholic Church talks about the one true religion.
Yeah.
The Catholic religion is the one true religion. Paul VI, Ecclesiam Suam.
Yeah. Yeah, and that sometimes
We
gets a little
forget
muddled.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah, we forget that.
Yeah, kind of all religions have a lot to offer, and we're all in this together. But there is one religion that is supreme.
And remember the sacred liberty of the church. We got to keep coming back to that because we talk about these lawsuits.
Yeah.
And that's treating religion just as a civic thing.
Yeah.
Which is fine. But it's also a sacred thing. The true religion has a sacred freedom.
Yes, amen. All right, if you want to talk to us, call up 877-757-9424. This is GRN Live, Friday edition. Joe and the team down in Houston do the Monday show, and wonderful show they had Monday. And again, the religious liberty, religious freedom seems to be keep coming back. And I was happy to see, Cecil, that another bishop is pushing back against civil authorities who are trying to restrict religious liberty.
Yeah, definitely. So, like Dr. Morley mentioned, there is the attorneys for the Diocese of Madison have sent a letter to Dane County, which Madison resides in, on Wednesday.
Wisconsin, right? Yeah.
Madison, Wisconsin, notifying officials that they will file a suit if parishes in the diocese are not permitted to operate at the same capacity as retail outlets. So currently what the rules are in Dane County is that retail businesses are permitted to operate at a 25% capacity of what they can hold. Places of worship, however, are limited to the maximum of 50 people regardless of the capacity. That means that St. Maria Goretti Church, which has 1,225 seats, can only fill 50 of them, even though it could easily fit a lot more if you follow the 25% rule. So, and that's the only thing that is is specified.
Yeah.
That churches have to be 50.
And that was the second draft, right? Didn't the first draft not have that?
Yeah, I think that might be. Yeah, I think I saw
So
that.
They added that.
Everybody knows that there are much stronger and stricter restrictions on religious gatherings. I mean, if you saw I know this is another country, but if you saw the rally in London this week, I mean, I don't know how many tens, if not hundreds of thousands of people were packed together. And we've seen the pictures and the video this week of the protesters gathered, and you're like, wait a second, I thought we weren't allowed to do that. And I'll tell you what, I could explain my own frustration with this, but I came across actually Doug Berry, who's a popular Catholic leader, posted something. It's a Protestant pastor from Atlanta, Georgia, Dr. Kynan Bridges. This guy pretty much sums it up better than I can. It's about 3 minutes long, but I want you to listen to this. This is Dr. Kynan Bridges kind of expressing his own dismay at the double standard. Here's what he had to say.
Hey, friends all over the world. I may get in trouble for what I'm about to tell you, but I need to tell you anyway. I believe that we are seeing one of the greatest deceptions that we have seen in hundreds of years. And I'm trying to figure out, is nobody paying attention to this? Is no one listening? Is nobody thinking anymore? Have we allowed the media to be such a strong influence in our lives that we don't scrutinize blatant contradictions right in front of our faces? Has anybody taken the time to think about how in the world there are mass protests all over the nation where thousands upon thousands are gathering? And just a week prior, we were told not to go back to churches, not to go back to schools, not to go back so that we can mitigate the spread of COVID-19, and yet there are thousands of people marching in close proximity, even vandalism taking place in the name of justice. Is anybody paying attention to this, or am I the only one that has common sense to realize that there is a game being played? People are being manipulated right now. A great deception is upon us, and we need to open our eyes and see it. On Sunday, many churches were empty, and yet streets were filled with people. Some of the same people that said, you know, it is not safe to go to church because we don't want to get the virus, but would take their families and take their loved ones and go march. And I'm not against protesting. I'm not against peaceful protests. But what I am against is deception. I am against manipulation, and I believe that we are being deceived. I believe that there are communities of marginalized people that are being manipulated, that they are being played, that their pain is being exploited for destructive purposes. And I believe that we need to wake up to this. This may not be the popular opinion, and R.I.P. George Floyd, and I pray for justice for his family. I pray for justice for him and all of those affected. But what I cannot seem to swallow is how narratives can so swiftly and quickly change to fit whatever the agenda is. So they just discourage you from going to houses of worship, and now they're telling you it's okay to go on the streets. Something is amiss. Something is amiss.
I think a lot of people are thinking that
That's
same
fantastic.
thing. Yeah, and that good?
Something's rotten in Denmark.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? I mean, social chaos,
Yeah.
undermining of the social order. And so, I mean, again, pointing to our guest,
Yeah.
return to order is in the background there of his movement.
Right. Yeah. Also, related news out of Supreme Court. They ruled in favor of California's limits on the number of people who may attend a church service in a decision that saw justices debating whether religious services were being treated more strictly than similar gatherings, exactly what the good doctor just spoke about. Chief Justice Roberts joined 4 Democrat-appointed justices in a 5-4 majority. His opinion reemphasized the need to defer to elected officials amid efforts to respond to the COVID-19 epidemic. So basically, even the Supreme Court is saying, hey, these rules are okay. We can continue to limit, houses of worship, but hey.
Now, on this point, here's my thing. Materially, I think that California law is a problem, but that the judge would side in favor of basically letting the local politician make the decision. There formally, I think there's a point there.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? In other words, like let's not interfere. That's basically what his point is.
Okay. So they
again, I agree with a lawsuit brought against them. Maybe like they're unfairly targeting religion. I don't know. It's difficult, but that's what Roberts is arguing. By the way, that's what he did with Obamacare. Same thing. Like, let's try to find a way that the lawmakers know what they're doing. Yeah, that's what he did. Now, he was pushing the envelope there.
Right. Yeah, well, you obviously have a little bit more insight into it than I do. On the surface of it, it seemed, like, gosh, this doesn't seem right. But yeah, you've got a good point there.
He doesn't want to legislate from the bench.
Yeah, there's a couple other stories that I want to get to. And this one, even though it's more of a pop culture, sports-related story, I think it is a little concerning. The story about Drew Brees, the quarterback of the New Orleans Saints.
The big problem is that he threw touchdowns against Notre Dame.
Yeah. And you'll never forgive him for that, will you? All right.
The spoiler makers.
So, there's a whole debate, Colin Kaepernick and kneeling during the national anthem, and it got kind of cooled down over the last couple of years, but it was a big deal. I guess it was back in 2017, 2018. And you had the people that were more on the patriotic side, you're disrespecting the flag, disrespecting the military, and then the people who are indignant about the police brutality against African Americans, and the two sides, and we know all about the tension, right? So now with the George Floyd murder, of course, there's this is kind of raising again. And Drew Brees went on to social media, and I guess he was asked a question, and he said he still believes kneeling during the national anthem, he cannot support it because it's disrespecting the flag. Okay,
That's all he said.
That's all he said. It's disrespecting the flag. Now, whether you agree with him or not, it doesn't matter. But what happened afterwards is what concerns me, because everybody who works in corporate America, everybody who is in the culture knows that you just can't say something. You can't go into a corporate America and say that you believe marriage is between a man and a woman anymore, right? Because we're not allowed to say things. We're not allowed to. You might even get in trouble for saying you're pro-life.
You'll be in trouble for not going to an indoctrination camp where they tell you it's the opposite.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
No, you have to go. I've talked to guys that working at this and that company. I'm not going to name them. But,
Yeah. And I used to work in corporate America, and I remember the sensitivity training, and the everybody had to do this, and you're all being kind of molded to believe the same thing. Okay, so again, whether Drew Brees is right or wrong, the mob, the social mob came into him, and within 24 hours, he does what they always do. He issues an apology.
Yep.
Right.
Okay, and he said, I would like to apologize to my friends, teammates, the city of New Orleans, the black community, NFL community, anyone I hurt with my comments yesterday. And speaking of with some of you, it breaks my heart to know the pain I have caused. Okay, so within 24 hours, he has done a complete reversal, okay? Tony Dungy, who is an African-American football coach, I believe the only African-American football coach. Diane's a bigger fan than I am, who's won a Super Bowl, right? He was interviewed about this. I love what he had to say, and we'll play that audio here in just a second. But Dr. Malloy? Oh, I thought you were going to say something.
Yeah, well, the whole thing about patriotism, this is what I want to cut. What is patriotism? It is love of the people and the land.
Yeah.
Foremostly. It's not political in the sense of Democrat, Republican.
Yeah.
We got to realize that when Obama was president and people were doing the proper, the customary gesture, I should say.
Yeah.
At the Pledge of Allegiance or at the Star Spangled Banner.
Yeah.
That's what you do.
Yeah.
Why not? You're not supporting Obama and his bad policies.
Right.
You're supporting the love of the people and the land.
Yeah.
And that's actually a duty.
And so basically, the forces are saying everybody has to say the same thing. We have to talk from the same talking points. We have to believe the same thing. And anybody who steps out of line, you even have to allow people to say bad opinions. We have to allow this. This is our freedom to say something. But Drew Brees was not given that freedom. Tony Dungy, I thought, had a great response. This was his response when asked about the Drew Brees comments when he was interviewed on a sports show.
Who has to have those conversations, you think, Tony? Who
We all have to have them. We have to have Drew Brees saying what he said. I don't downgrade Drew for that. Okay, that's what he said. He may not totally understand. It may have been not exactly the way he wanted to express it, but he can't be afraid to say that. And we can't be afraid to say, okay, Drew, I don't agree with you, but let's talk about this and let's sit down and talk about it. We can't just say anytime something happens that we don't agree with, hey, I'm done with that and I'm done with this person, and that doesn't make sense. We have to be better than that. This battle is not going to be won by demonstrating and throwing bricks through windows. It's not going to be won by the government saying, hey, we're going to bring out these weapons and dominate the streets again. That is not going to fix anything.
I saw a news reporter the other day doing a live stand-up in the middle of one of the big protests. And you know how sometimes you get all the people in the streets in the protests, and then there's some cars that just happen to be driving through because they're trying to get home or what have you, and they just happen to be in the middle of the protest. And the reporter was saying, wow, everybody in these cars is giving the thumbs up, and they're honking their horns, and they all support the protesters. And I was like, well, maybe they do, maybe they don't. But they also realize that they don't have a choice. I mean, if you don't, it's very possible you may end up dead or your car is destroyed. I mean, and so it's not really a situation where the person is given a chance to say, you know what, I'm gonna, it's mob rule.
Maybe they're waving to mom too.
Yeah, perhaps on TV. Yeah. All right. In the midst of all this, there is a good news story, right,
There's a
Sissel?
good news story. I like always to end with a good news story. So you may have seen this has been circling the internet quite a lot, but a nun in Cincinnati actually made a statement during one of the protests. She got up. And she's how do you ever say that? The Carmelite nun.
Discalced.
Thank you. I was like, discalced Carmelite nun of the daughters of Saint Elias climbed a ladder and spray painted windows covered in cardboard with 2 inspiring slogans saying "God is love" and "The world will change when hearts change." And she painted this while the protesters were passing the building, which belongs to the sisters in the neighborhood in Cincinnati, and it's gotten quite a few views, over 360,000 views. And there's also a picture of several of them praying with the protesters.
And fully habited nun.
Fully habited.
Up there
It's
with
pretty
spray
awesome.
paint,
It's pretty fun to see. You watch a nun climb a ladder and spray paint this cute little message.
Yeah, because if you just look at it right off the bat, she looks like a looter because she's up there with spray paint painting on
right,
and
you're like, what is she
wow,
doing?
this fully habited nun, what is she writing?
She does it right. She puts it on cardboard.
yeah, and it said God is love, and that's awesome.
I do love the message
that
awesome. The world will change when hearts will change, because everything always becomes very political, I think, when it comes to these statements. But remember, no policy will actually change anyone's heart.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I think it was a good statement to have.
Yeah, amen. All right, thanks for tuning in. This is GRN Live. It's been quite a week, and when we come back, we're gonna take a quick break here on GRN Live, and we're gonna speak to the Vice President of the American Society for the Defense of Tradition, Family, and Property. You were talking about property a moment ago and how kind of the concept of property has changed. His name is John Horvat, and he wrote an article called "The Pandemic Has Made America a Leprosarium of Non-Lepers," and I found it a really interesting article. You may or may not agree with him, but I think it's definitely going to give you a different perspective on what's going on in our culture and our land today. If you want to join us with your opinion, your thoughts, your questions, call us up, 877-757-9424. GRN Live will continue right after this.
Next week, we will be hosting our quarterly share-a-thon on Tuesday through Friday from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Central Time. The GRN is 100% listener supported, and for only 16 days out of the year, you have the opportunity to be an active part of the GRN family by making a pledge of support for your radio station. Please pray for the success of the share-a-thon. We are so very thankful that you're part of the Lord's divine providence, sharing of your prayers and financial gifts, which sustain the work of evangelization through the powerful means of radio. I invite you to tune in and join us next week as we share how Catholic radio has changed so many lives for all eternity due to your support to keep your station on the air. This is Len Oswald, President of the Guadalupe Radio Network, with your GRN Family Minute. We are your Catholic radio, radio for your soul.
Solidarity Health Share is rebuilding Catholic healthcare in America. We conform to the moral guidelines of the Catholic Church so that you never have to worry about your healthcare dollars paying for anything that violates your conscience. From conception to natural death, we strive to serve all healthcare needs, protect human life, celebrate families, and promote the dignity of all people. Join Solidarity Health Share in restoring and rebuilding authentic Catholic healthcare by signing up at solidarityhealthshare.org, a sponsor of the Guadalupe Radio Network.
The new and improved GRNOnline.com is now available. Hi, Joe McClain here, and I am so excited. GRNOnline.com just became so much better. Log on today. Enable location services so that you can find the local station information, the local program. Listen to your local GRN station right now. Get the podcast, events, and more. Plus, all of the network shows that you love the most. Again, GRNOnline.com.
This is GRN Alive, and thanks for joining us June 5th. It's been a crazy week, but we put our trust in the dear Lord and the intercession of our Blessed Mother and the saints in heaven. And if you want to join us, we appreciate your calls, 877-757-9424. In just a moment, John Horvat II is going to join us from the American Society for the Defense of Tradition, Family, and Property. But John is going to hold on just a second because I want to go to a call. Jerry has called in from Dallas or Irving and wants to weigh in on the topic. Jerry, thanks for calling. Good morning.
Thank you, Dave, and thank you, Chris, and thank you, GRN team. I think you guys are doing a great job of bringing some joy into our mornings. We all need some joy right now.
We do, indeed.
Well, good. I'm glad. The topic doesn't always lend itself to joy, but anyways, I'm glad you're
got to keep a sense of humor.
Yeah. So what's on your mind?
Well, I want to weigh in a little bit. I want to give you guys some good news in relation to what you were discussing earlier, and chide ourselves a little bit even on this topic, for accepting what the mass media dishes out. So a couple little bits of updates. So you talked about the religious freedom litigation with Governor Newsom in California. And I want to give you a little bit of an update from a guest who's been on GRN with us on KATH just in the last couple of months, and tell you why the news is much better than what might see the public airwaves. So specifically, Charles Lamandry and the FCDF Legal, which is the Freedom of Conscience Defense Fund, is actually the litigant. They're the ones who sued the governor of California to allow the South Bay Pentecostal Church to open, and that actually was what went up to the Supreme Court. And John Roberts ruled, and his court ruled that nominally, anyway, it seems that they ruled against this request. But actually, what happened was that the court didn't send the case down on its merits. They simply said that as you guys already pointed out, that states have the right to, in a time of emergency and so on, to provide for public good and to make decisions of this nature. What they all actually said was that the complaint itself was not one about it was a ruling about with a 5-4 vote, but the court actually didn't dismiss the case, and it didn't rule on the merits of the church's First Amendment claim. It said the order was just a single line decision that simply said that there's an expedited appeal possible to the Ninth Circuit, which also is likely to wind up before the Supreme Court. And if that's the case, the court can actually rule on the merits of religious freedom in this situation. So
nice.
The situation is not as dire as we think. That in fact, good people who are fighting for the cause of religious freedom, including those that are our friends at Guadalupe Radio, are actually bringing the fight to these somewhat repressive public authorities.
Well,
Nice.
that is really good news, and I'm glad that Jerry has a different perspective on it. Because I gotta admit, I'm guilty of kind of reading the headline in the first paragraph and thinking, "Oh my gosh, this isn't good." But you guys have definitely brought a different perspective. Hey, Jerry, thank you very much for calling in and sharing that with us. We got some other folks that want to weigh in as well. 877-757-9424. I do though want to go to our scheduled guest, John Horvat. He's vice president of the American Society for the Defense of Tradition, Family, and Property. And he joins us here on GRN Alive this morning to talk about his article. We may talk about some other things as well. The pandemic has made America a leprosarium of non-lepers. What a great title. John Horvat, good morning.
Morning. Great to be on the show.
Yeah, before we get into the article and some of the other related topics, the very name of your organization, Tradition, Family, and Property, you think about the things that are just getting really viciously attacked in our culture today. You pretty much have hit it, haven't you? The tradition of our country and our church, our families, marriage, and nowadays we see property being destroyed. And wow, this is what you guys are all about, is protecting these, right?
Right. These are three pillars of a Christian civilization. They're defended by the church and by the commandments. Even property, has two commandments. Defending private property, the family is also in the commandments, and of course tradition. So that's where we should be. That's where we are. We're defending these three basic values.
Yeah,
which are under great attack.
Yes. The website, tfp.org, for the American Society for the Defense of Tradition, Family, and Property. John, I'm just going to read the first paragraph of your article. The pandemic has made America a leprosarium of non-lepers, and I'll let you take it from there and just kind of give us the premise and why you were inspired to write this. You said, "We are living in surreal times in which everything is upside down as society is opening up from the coronavirus lockdown. Perhaps a metaphor best explains what we have gone through." And why don't you explain it from there? What was the metaphor that you came up with?
Well, the metaphor is a leprosarium, that America has become a huge leprosarium. A leprosarium is a place where very sick and very contagious people are put to keep society safe from their disease. But in this case, it's been turned around. The whole society has become a leprosarium, and people full of people who are not lepers, and we're forced to treat others like lepers and be treated like lepers. Everybody can't touch each other. Everybody can't. It's a type of situation where you say, well, what's going on? We need to we need to take measures, but we shouldn't, shut down everything and destroy economy and our society and shut down worship simply because of these measures that should be taken. So, I think it is a fitting metaphor.
Yeah, and at the beginning, I was thinking, all right, the face masks, maybe, let's just kind of see. At first, they were saying, I remember when they closed schools, they said, oh, we're just going to extend spring break 1 week, and it's probably, a couple of weeks, we'll be back to normal. And then here we are, 3 months later, and, everybody's kind of acting the same. And there's stories in the news about there's a next pandemic on the way, and it's going to be worse than this one. And wouldn't you say it's all based on fear? And fear is not of God.
Yeah, there's a lot of fear, a lot of rumor, these kind of things, and not a lot of science, because you just hear so many contrary things. The masks are good, no, they're bad, no, they're good, no, they're bad. Hard surfaces, are transmitters, now they're not. So now people are saying it's not even airborne. I mean, we really don't have the science, or at least the science is not coming out with something that is set, and you can base your actions upon them. And as a result, we're taking measures that are blind and severe and destructive of the things that are of our society.
Yeah, absolutely. If anybody wants to weigh in, give us a call. John Horvat is with us from the American Society for the Defense of Tradition, Family, and Property. And I know that a lot of people are just, doing what they're putting the face masks on. They want to protect themselves. This is, they're being obedient to the civil authorities, or, when they go to church, and obedience is certainly a good thing. But I think
right.
What we're getting at here is, let's just take a look and see,
are we overreacting?
Is there an overreaction?
Right, and do we have to all become lepers? And the tragic thing is, the only way out of our big leprosarium is to become is to be a leper. As soon as you have coronavirus, you're taken out of the leprosarium and brought to the hospital and cured, and then you're sent back to the leprosarium. So it's a leprosarium in reverse, and that's not the way to take care of the problem.
Yeah, I don't know if this is too much of a stretch, but there have been heresies during the course of Christian history where basically the body is seemed to be bad, right? Is that the Manichaeans, or
where you name it,
marriage is bad,
Albigensians,
the Albigensians, and this may be more of a stretch, but I'm just going to go ahead and go there. And is there a certain sense of saying, are we putting in the minds of people, and maybe not deliberately, but that other people are bad. Other people are to be avoided. When you go into a restaurant, at least where we live, and there's little things on the floor that separate everybody by 6 feet. What's the message there? Is that you got to stay away from people. You may get a disease if you get within 6 feet of this person. You got to put a face mask on, because that person, I don't know. Is that too much of a stretch to say there's something fundamentally wrong?
It's interesting. It's a prioritization of the body, because you don't want to get sick,
Yeah.
right? So right away, you're beginning with health as the primary good.
Yeah.
I get, people don't make the distinction of health is a well, without health, you're dead. So there is a kind of a first take care of, feed the hungry.
Mm-hmm.
But the higher good is the spiritual works.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But then this gets twisted into an anti-bodily, almost like Heaven's Gate. Do you remember Heaven's Gate?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Where they're just streaming online virtual. That's number one. Body bad.
Yeah.
John, right. It's you're sick until proven you're not innocent until proven guilty. You're sick until proven not sick, and even then you are treated as if you are sick. We need to be very reasonable about these kind of things, and especially considering that huge portions of the population really are not vulnerable to this to the illness. They have young people, healthy people, people below the age of 60. All these people are very, very less likely to get it than people who are unhealthy and older people.
John, could you speak to it seems like a fact that there are some people, some power movers, moneyed, political, that are taking advantage of this situation? Like, it's a legitimate situation, but they're in it they could maybe produce the vaccine, then they're going to make billions of dollars. Could you speak about these players? Or at least these mechanics behind the scenes that we're not quite seeing unless we're paying attention closely.
Right. I'm very much. I don't like to use the narrative of power and money because that is somewhat of a Marxist narrative. That everything is power and money, and everything is just to a materialistic.
There you go. I've been
sense.
duped. I've drunk the Kool-Aid.
No. I mean, I there definitely is that element in the whole thing. I'm not denying it, but it's not the main element. There are philosophers out there that I'm thinking of one called Harari, who's written a book called Homo Deus, Man God. And you don't need conspiracy theories. He just lays it right out. He says, no, we need to go to a society, a egalitarian society, where everybody is chipped and everybody will be hooked up to the main system, and and this will be our happiness. And it is I mean, it's just a horrendous way of looking at life. But these are the things that a lot of these people are openly saying. This ecological, tribal, above all, anti-God society and making man God. That is what they want to do.
John, we got some calls coming in, so I want to get to those. 877-757-9424. This is GRN Live here on the Guadalupe Radio Network, Friday morning edition. Sam is calling from San Antonio. Sam, good to have you with us. What's your comment or question for John Horvat?
Hello.
Hi, Sam. Go ahead.
Hi, good morning. Just an observation and maybe an analogy. I was reflecting on the song Amazing Grace, beautiful lyrics, and how we've been singing it, a part of our culture and faith for over 100 years. But now, of course, we're walking without faith, and so we lost that footing, that solid ground. So from where I sit, when I'm in faith or struggling a bit, it looks like other people are standing in quicksand. And they're screaming louder, shouting louder, yelling more, because they're actually sinking in quicksand. They're not realizing they're actually sinking because they're not standing on solid ground what they used to carry. It's a beautiful song. I wish they would sing it more in their hearts more often. I wish we all would.
Yeah.
That's just my analogy on how we separated ourselves from our faith.
Yeah, Sam,
I think
thanks
that's
a lot.
a very
Go
good
ahead,
point.
John. Yeah, go ahead, John.
Yeah, and and this is something I think we can't emphasize. We need to emphasize, just completely emphasize, that this whole crisis is not a health crisis or even a economic crisis or social crisis. It's a moral crisis. This is a moral problem of people who are not following the law of God, who are not living in accordance with the life of God, and so we can expect disorder. When we are following the law of God, we are not in quicksand. We are on a solid foundations, and so that song should speak very much to us, especially those who want to who want to follow God's moral law.
Yeah. All right, Olivia calling in from Dallas. Hi, Olivia. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you to Guadalupe Radio, and thank you to TFP. And I just want people who are now hearing about TFP for the first time to please get familiar with their work. They give us, the people in the pews, they give us a voice. They help us organize our thoughts and articulate them among the other pew members, because we always need, the choir needs practice. And I participated in the TFP event earlier. Well, I think it was in December in Dallas at House of Blues. And it's just such a beautiful, their event, standing there and praying and bringing order to the crowd that is just kind of going along mindlessly. So I just want to thank you so much.
That's awesome. House of Blues.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. Thanks, John. Well, I guess you probably wouldn't disagree with anything Olivia said.
No, and it's just so necessary for us to be out there in the public square, and
Yeah.
I think that's the important thing. We need to be in the pews as well. We need to be in the choir, but we need to sing and be out there singing so people can hear us. And we have a very important and very attractive message. The church has that.
Yeah.
We need to be proud of it and not to be afraid.
John, could you comment on religious liberty? If we read Leo the 13th, he'll say the first thing people want is to treat all religions equally, and they'll tolerate. So we start off with tolerating false religions, but the true religion's on equal footing. Then he says the next step is the persecution of the true religion. Could you comment on that? In other words, we all are, the prelates, the bishops, we're all only appealing to Caesar and civic religious liberty. And we seem to have forgotten the sacred liberty of the church and the notion of the one true religion. And I'm just wondering if we're at a pivotal phase in society where now it's time to put the screws to the true religion, say the authorities.
Right. Oh, yes. Very, very much so. You know, it is. The very tendency is exactly that, to say, well, everybody has a voice, everybody, and if except those who say they're the only voice, and have the voice of truth. And so, yes, it will lead to the persecution of the church, and we will see this. It's a natural consequence, and it's happened in history. You know, so often in history you'll see that.
Mm-hmm. I know Dr. Malloy and I are big St. Thomas fans. I'm sure you are as well. And, Leo XIII, who Dr. Malloy referred to, had the great Aeterni Patris, the restoration of Christian philosophy according to the mind of St. Thomas Aquinas. And I see this kind of disintegration of culture. If you go back to the 60s, you've got Griswold versus Connecticut with contraception. And then in 1973, you've got Roe v. Wade, abortion. And then you have the reversal of sodomy laws. And then you got Obergefell versus Hodges, and then and it's just it's just one thing after another, and I guess the question is that as we continue to see society unravel, what are the steps? We have to pray first, but what are the steps that we can take to start to just kind of maybe take baby steps to kind of put this all back together again? What is your suggestion, John?
Well, I mean, what we're facing is a revolution, a historic process that is, progressing. They have a purpose. They have an end. The only way to fight a process is with another process, which is a counter-revolutionary process or a counter-narrative, so to speak. And so I think we need to not accept the narratives that are thrown at us. You know, the idea that the church is something wrong, or the church is, they're throwing a lot of things at us. The church is corrupt, the church is this, the church is that. We have to say, no, the church is holy, holy, Catholic, and apostolic. It is our means of salvation. We hold on to that truth. We live according to it. We need to challenge them. We need to challenge it in the culture, the way we live our lives, the way we the way we dress, the way we look. All these things are it is in every aspect of our life. We need to try to orient ourselves according to the teachings of the traditional teachings of the church. None of this very super modern theology, which will not lead you there.
877-757-9424. John Horvat is with us with the American Society for the Defense of Tradition, Family, and Property, and we invite your calls, but you got to do it quickly because we're down to our last 5 minutes or so here. 877-757-9424.
John, can you speak about the connection of Our Lady of Fatima? I know she is very dear to TFP. We had the traveling statue in our home. It was wonderful. The guys in Houston came up. I just forever grateful. Hope we get it again. But Vigano just came out with a connection with Civitavecchia, and I don't know if you heard about that. But
I saw it yesterday. I didn't really read it all. But yeah, Fatima is the message for our times. It speaks so much. All the things she said would happen are happening, and she gives us the formula, of prayer, penance, amendment of life, consecration of ourselves, consecration of Russia. I mean, all these things are the way to fight against this, and we try to do our part of promoting the message of Fatima. And by the America Needs Fatima campaign, the statues, the prayer and penance, and our activism with having that in mind.
I want to ask you, the big target of protesters right now are police. Now the big thing right now is defund the police. And I'm thinking, well, okay, defund the police. And there seems to be just an attack on the order of society. If you go back to the French Revolution, of course, the church was physically attacked, and priests and nuns, were killed. And that's not happening now. They're not going after church leaders. But I wonder if there's just a connection with the police as a symbol of authority and the church and God and anarchy and socialism is, and I know I'm putting a lot together there, John, but can you kind of tie it together? What is the end game here for the anarchists or whoever's behind this?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's a definite connection because the police are a symbol of order and the moral law. They represent the moral law. They may not know it in an indirect way. They represent that there are restraints upon human behavior, and they need to be recognized and be done. And these people hate restraint, any type of moral restraint, even type of identity restraint. You know, I can be anything I want to be. I can think anything I want to. You know, we've reached a point where it used to be, well, you know, I can do anything I want. Now it's gone even to the point of being. It's a more radical form of this hatred of restraint, hatred of order, and hatred of a moral law.
Yeah. We spoke earlier before you came on about the Drew Brees situation. I don't know if you followed that. And this is just one isolated incident, but there's also an attack on even speaking your mind. Okay, the Drew Brees, you know, that's not an issue directly related to religion, but just kind of working in corporate America and saying, you know what, I believe in marriage between a man or a woman. Well, you're not going to have a job the next day.
Right.
You know, that to me is really insidious. And we only have a minute or two left, but do you want to talk about how this is all related to our freedom to just express our beliefs as Catholics?
Right. I mean, and the other side does not have a moral law or does not follow morals. So it's, at one point it will say freedom, let's freedom for everybody, and then the next point it will say no freedom. You know, for them, the revolution that they push is the final goal, and any means to get to it is moral and licit. And so they will chastise you one moment and praise you the next, you know, according to their to the if it's expedient.
Yeah,
John, you talk about the revolution. What is that end game there?
And you got about 30 seconds.
He's quick.
Yeah, do it quickly. Is he? Oh, I think we. Oh gosh, I think we inadvertently lost him.
That's too bad. He's so pithy.
He's like, I can't do that in 30 seconds. I'm out of here.
Well, I think he was going to say it's the Marxist socialist revolution.
Yeah.
That weird sense of happiness is just kind of living 70 years down here in a tribal village.
Yeah. I think
that's it.
And what opposes that is religion, order, police. Yeah. And I think he made a great comment. So, John, I'll give you a call after the show. We're sorry we lost you. But that does it. Dr. Malloy, thank you so much. We're going to have an after show and talk about this a little bit more. That's an opportunity for you to watch us on YouTube, Twitter, or Facebook. Just go GRN Online if you want to continue the conversation for a little while. Thanks to our guests. God bless you. Remember, God's in control, and we'll see you next week. And, of course, Joe and the team Monday, same time, and Tuesday, the Share-a-thon begins. Please support the Guadalupe Radio Network.
Thank you for listening to GRN Alive.
From the studios of the Guadalupe Radio Network.
For more faith, fun, and facts,
join our email list.
Just text the letters GRN to the number 42828. That's GRN to the number 42828.
And may your Friday be filled with the joy of the Lord.
Blessed be God, blessed be his holy name. Blessed be Jesus Christ, true God and true man. Blessed be the name of Jesus. Blessed be his most sacred heart. Blessed be his most precious blood. Blessed be Jesus in the most holy sacrament of the altar. Blessed be the Holy Spirit, the Paraclete. Blessed be the great Mother of God, Mary most holy. Blessed be her holy and immaculate conception. Blessed be her glorious assumption.
All right, welcome to our after show. This is Cecil Anderson. I've run over to the other side of the room so I can get on here and open it up. Dave will be joining us again in just a second. We're going to continue to talk about the topics that we talked about on the show this morning in more detail and a little more of a relaxed manner. So if you're still with us on Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube, you can join the conversation by commenting. We encourage all comments, and I'll read them out. We can have more of a discussion. And yeah, definitely. Oh, yep, we already have a question, and I will definitely answer that. Austin asked if there's a link for the clip of Dr. Bridges. Diane, do you have that link? I actually had a caller ask for that as well. For the pastor, Dr. Bridges. Yeah, I'll try. We'll definitely find that link and post it here on the comment section. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, the link to that. And I believe it was attached to an article that's how Dave found out about it, but it was like a Facebook post originally. So we'll definitely locate that for you. So, yeah. But good morning, Diane. This is the first time we get to say hi to everyone.
Good morning, Cecil. How are you?
I'm doing well. So I'm going to, there we go. I got distracted because I was looking for the link. So I'm going to share that into the group Facebook page. But if anyone has any comments about anything that we discussed today, please feel free to ask questions, make comments, and we can discuss them more thoroughly. Hi, Dave. You're back.
Yes, I am. After the show, I need to say goodbye to Dr. Malloy and kind of decompress. And I thought it was interesting because I found that to be a pretty heavy show, some pretty heavy topics.
Oh, for sure.
And then when Jerry Jacob calls in, he said, "Oh, thank you for your joyful discussion this morning." And Jerry is kind of perpetually upbeat, and he's just a very optimistic guy. But I thought that was kind of interesting. But maybe you can talk about bad stuff in a joyful way. I mean,
Sure.
you could, because our joy is always in the Lord, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think you can, you should be able to take joy in even sometimes the worst circumstances.
Yeah. So you didn't get to jump in a whole lot during the discussion. Is there anything, and I know some of these are landmines, and there's a lot there. Is, anything that you want to comment on?
Well, I was thinking when we were discussing about, religious liberty, and obviously we've got religious freedom, we've got a lot of issues going on with churches not being allowed to be open, but then we're having these large protests. And I just want to make sure it's clear that the protests are allowed. It should be happening. But the problem is that the churches haven't been.
Yeah.
And and obviously what's being protested is something that's really obviously a big issue that people are very near to their hearts.
Yeah.
Well, our faith is also very near to our hearts. Why didn't we do anything about that?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That kind of thought came to my head.
And I guess they could say, well, the protests are planned. I know there was one in our city yesterday of Bedford, Texas, and the police knew about it. It was scheduled. You have to get I think generally you get a permit. I don't know that some of these protests, they're just spontaneous,
Right.
And so they may say, well, we don't know that these are going to happen, and so how can we control it? But at the same time, there's, and I think the good doctor that we played really summarized it much better than I can, is that there does seem to be a double standard, and I don't know why houses of religion seem to be singled out. I know I go to Walmart, and I know that's essential. You got to get food, but I've been to other stores. I've been to Lowe's and Home Depot, and nothing that I got at Lowe's or Home Depot was essential.
Oh, for sure. And honestly, a lot of the things at a Walmart aren't essential either. There's food, yes.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of things there. You wander off into the electronics section. You're getting the music. Oh, let me get this new video game. Those are not essential. And it's the whole point that we're saying the church is not essential. And I'm like, well, when did we ever decide that? And who got to decide that? So
Sam from San Antonio called in, and he had the analogy of somebody sinking in quicksand. He talked about the song "Amazing Grace." Did you? Sometimes you get caught up, and somebody calls in, and they, I'm thinking of the leprosarium analogy metaphor, and then he's the other. Did you? You've talked. I think he's talking mostly about just relying on God's grace and having faith through this, right?
I think what he's saying is that in the past we maybe have been more grounded in faith, and that I think there's a line in Amazing Grace. It's like the most common song ever, and I can't think of the lyric right now, but it's something about like standing on solid ground or something.
Yeah.
And so I think what he's saying is that in the past we might have been more prepared, or at other times we could be more prepared for something like this to happen. But now we're giving into a lot of fear, and we're sinking down and we're shouting out because we haven't been living out Christian lives.
Yeah. All right, we know some of you are watching us on the social media platforms. Diane Xavier is here, and Diane, great job again. Thank you so much. We got Sam, the intern, who is here as well, and he's learning Diane's craft, so he can help us on Mondays. And but we want to know your comments. I always am interested when we throw things out there because. Our beliefs are rooted in our faith and our understanding of our belief, but sometimes you have to take prudential judgments about things like the coronavirus. I mean, you're not going to find the coronavirus in the Bible. It's not in the Catechism. How to respond to it? Do you, should we wear face masks? Should we be quarantined? Shelter in place, staying 6 feet away from each other. And so you have to make prudential judgments about whether or not this makes sense. And I think I was pretty clear during the show about where I am on that. And I'd love to hear what other people are thinking. They may think, I know some people would probably like to wear face masks the rest of their life. They just think it's, there's a lot of germs out there and there's a lot of ways to get sick. And, hey, if that's your thought, let us know what you think. Where are you on that spectrum? I was about to give out the phone number, but you just let us know through the social media platforms.
Yeah, definitely. I was just thinking, isn't it more common in other countries to wear face masks when you're in like in Asian countries? Isn't that more common? Like you see, I feel like I've seen photographs in like major cities in Asia.
It's funny you say that because in our neighborhood, there are a number of people, even if you went back a year ago, 6 months ago, that walk around, and when they take their walks, they have masks on. Sometimes they're like real masks, like that cover the whole head,
Whoa.
And I was like, you trying to keep mosquitoes out, or what are you doing? But now that I think about it, they have been predominantly Asian people that do that. So it may be a cultural thing.
Yeah, no, I was just wondering because like it's always seemed like a thing that was more commonplace in other countries. That's all. Sorry, random thought that came to my head.
Yeah, well, that's common. I like I said, I find it. I don't know, when somebody has a mask on, and maybe it's just me and maybe it's just my eccentricity, but to me it's kind of like the pushing me back, or there's something about me that they don't want to catch, and I'm like, I'm healthy, I promise. I'll take my temperature right now. All right, let us know what you think. Diane will tell us if anybody comments on it. The nuns in Cincinnati, that was awesome.
Oh, yeah, that was so cute. I love that story.
Yeah, and the fact that over 500,000 people have seen that video.
I know. It's one of those times when it's like, that's a good Catholic statement that needs to be seen more, frequently, just by the general public, for sure.
And that's brings up another point, is just, and I know, I use the excuse that, hey, I got to do a show. I got to keep up with things. I spend a lot of time on Twitter. And I don't like, if there's a video, let's say, and the caption says, rioters beating woman with a stick at the, I don't watch the video.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, it's moving below me, and I can see action, but I just can't go there. I just don't want to see that. I mean, I can see the description. I know what's happening, and that's not to say I never watch them, but I just don't think that's good for us to see that much evil.
Yeah, that, and honestly, taking a break from social media during this time is not a bad thing either.
Yeah,
it's not a bad thing at all. But then
at the same time, like for example, I knew that there was a protest scheduled in our city because I was on social media. My daughter works a quarter of a mile from where the protest was, and she had a shift last night. I actually went to her restaurant where she works and sat in the restaurant for 2 hours because I wanted to be there if any craziness happened. I would not have known about that had I not been in social media. There are some advantages, but again.
But then sometimes it also, like our city had a protest as well. And actually, right before the protest started happening, it started circulating on the web in our local area that some flyers had been passed out in my city that were vaguely threatening.
Oh, really?
Yeah, someone had averaged what the income for the city was, and to use your social economic privilege or something like that sort of thing, which was an interesting take. Now, the people who organized the protests in my city were very involved with the police and like had organized, and everyone knew about it, and so they said that was not us. So it's probably someone else just trying to like agitate. And I was like, we didn't get one, not in my neighborhood. There are definitely richer areas of my city, let's put it that way.
Yeah.
And but I thought that was an interesting little added.
Well, Highland Park also got it. Like someone posted on social media that they were planning to go loot Highland Park.
Yeah. They're like,
because
if you
of
want to
this
keep your luxury
high-income
stores, and I'm like,
area.
okay, we're not that luxury of a city, but okay.
Yeah, and that's it's interesting. I saw something on social media the other day, and it talked about how there is a certain portion of our culture that wants to divide us, that wants to sow division. And the guy made a comment. He said, husband against wife, mother against child with abortion, women against men, rich against poor, people against police. And he had a whole list of them of, the agitation that we have to feel, that there isn't harmony. There isn't, this sense. I'm not rich, but even if somebody inherits money and they're rich and they didn't work, that's okay, because I don't think there's any direct correlation between riches and happiness.
No.
I think there's a lot of people that are happy and have nothing, and there's some people that are happy and have a lot.
Yeah.
Ultimately, we want to be happy, but it's just agitation, and that's threatening though, because it's saying because these people are rich, we need to go destroy their homes, right?
Right, and I firmly believe too that obviously I'm not going to make anyone, but I think that if you are blessed with riches, you should share that wealth. But again, that's not your decision to make. We do have a comment on Facebook.
All right.
From Laura saying, "I'm so past the coronavirus panic. Can't wait for our churches to catch up, but trying to be obedient in the meantime."
Yeah, and that's and that's
the
why
thing.
I try to walk that fine line of not saying demand that your bishops open up.
Right.
We congratulate like the bishop in Madison, Wisconsin, when he does make a stand. But at the same time, we never mentioned any other bishops. We didn't, shame anybody. We didn't call out,
Right.
This bishop needs to open up and, that kind of thing. Even with the Archbishop in Washington, I tried to take the high road of not talking about the controversy about Trump, but just talking about what Trump did.
Right. Well, that's getting missed a lot in the news. Honestly, I kept seeing articles saying the bishop is mad at Trump, or something kept going on, and I'm like, wait, Trump went to the JP2 place? Hold on.
Yeah.
That's so cool, but again, it's a very cool facility there. They have like a first-class relic of
Trump
JP2.
gets criticized for everything he does.
I know. Yeah, well, yeah, it's like I definitely
Even if he does good.
I know. I mean, Trump has this way of doing things that is a certain. He holds a certain manner that I'm sometimes like, a little more grace, a little more, on the way he does things.
Yeah.
But I'm like, come on, people. Every politician has done something you don't like.
Yeah.
We got to be more balanced in our approach at looking at things.
Yeah. We on Monday we went on and I asked the question to the local audience, how are you keeping your peace? How are you staying calm and peaceful in the midst of this, all that's going on? And I don't think anybody called in and made any comments, but I am curious about that because I think there are some people that can maintain peace despite the circumstances. The famous the nuns of Compiègne from the French Revolution. Do you know about their story where in the French Revolution they gathered up the religious orders and they brought them to the guillotine and and there's actually pictures of this because this is back when there was photography. And these nuns were rounded up from their convent and brought to the guillotine, and the mob was gathered and all that. And as they were walking up to have their heads chopped off, what were they doing? They were singing. They were singing.
There's actually an opera that was written about that,
Yeah.
and UNT actually the students performed it, which I think was a really cool thing for everyone to see.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
A public university.
Yeah, public
doing
university.
That. Yeah.
I will say the audience wasn't like booming with people because it's a lesser known opera, and but a friend of ours was in it, so we got to go see it, and it was really beautiful.
Yeah. All right. Very nice. All right, Laura, thanks for the comments. And I think Sam knows Laura. I'm not sure. I think he may be familiar with her. So anybody else that's commenting, it's now 14 minutes after. We'll go a few more minutes. Diane, do you have any comments? Diane sits there and puts up all these images and gets everything, the links and all that. And she's got to be thinking, gosh, if I was on, this is what I'd say.
That was just a lot of things going on at once in the news.
Yeah. It is. It was a news-heavy week.
Yeah, that's for sure. You're so right. There are sometimes we come in and I kind of prefer those because no news is
good news.
Yeah. We don't need as much news as we've had the last week, but
you don't want to open up the news and find out about a tragedy.
Yeah.
And then be like, oh, good, at least I have something for my newscast. That's not what that's not the kind of attitude you want to take. It's more like, praise God, everyone's chilling at home,
Yeah.
just having a good week.
What'd you think of that prayer from the Divine Mercy?
That was beautiful.
Wasn't that nice?
I don't think I'd ever heard the full version. That's beautiful.
Yeah, and that's from Faustina's diary. And I don't know, I have not read Faustina's diary. It's big.
Yeah, it is.
If you
It
ever
is
see
very-
it's not a small thing. And that's one of the things that's it's a good problem to have, is that when we're Catholics, you might want to study theology of the body. You might want to study, Fatima. You might want to study, like I do, Thomas Aquinas and the Summa, or you might, but you can't do it all. You got to kind of pick your thing. And I wish I had more time to dig into Teresa of Avila, John of the Cross, or Edith Stein, or a number of other Saint Augustine. I've never read City of God.
I actually.
Oh, have you read it? Yeah.
I did in high school before I was even Catholic.
I read Confessions.
Yeah, yeah, that one's good too.
Saint Francis de Sales. Something about the devout life, an introduction to the devout life.
Actually, reading that right now.
Oh, are you?
Yeah, that's what I'm
okay.
reading before I go to bed right now. So
Okay.
I really like that. He's really writes well, but also writes very well to like the common person. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He has a very easy way to understand him.
Yeah.
So.
All right. And this is called Put the Intern on the Spot. Sam, do you have anything you want to say? You don't have to, but I just don't want to ignore you. But you can think about it. And if you don't, that's no problem. If there's anything you want to say, your mom's listening, so we should be careful, okay? But anyways, I think we pretty much wrapped this up, unless you have anything else, Sissel?
No pressure, right? I think I pretty
Share-a-thon
much
begins Tuesday.
Yes, that's so exciting. It's gonna be hopefully a very good one. Obviously these are hard times for us, so I just encourage everyone to call in. But it's gonna be fun. We're gonna have the call center back,
Yeah,
which is so
yeah.
exciting. Because last share-a-thon, to keep some social distance, we didn't have volunteers, but this time they were really excited. I mean, you were overbooked for the Dallas station, so it'll be good.
So that's people are eager to get back, and I don't think people are too concerned about all that's going on. So we're welcoming them back, and we're glad to have you. I will be in Midland, so I won't be here with everybody, but I'll be with those folks, and there'll be volunteers there. All right. Well, Diane, thank you very much. Sam, great to have you here for the show. Sissel, thanks. Thanks to everybody who hung out with us on social media afterwards. Appreciate your comments and your questions and your time that you devoted to listening to us. God bless you. Have a wonderful, wonderful weekend. Thanks for listening.